At the beginning of his Gospel, John sets out his purpose, summarising the message that he will deliver. He reminds his readers that in the beginning there was God, and God spoke. The result of God speaking was the creation of the world and all that was in it, in particular light and life. God didn't just create material, but he created persons with consciousness, the power to do things, the incredible machine that is our body. But it has self-consciousness, it has light, it has life. But then God has a grander purpose, not just in this creation, but his desire is that men might become children of God, that we might enter into his realm and take on his character, and not just be restricted to this earthly realm. So the light came into the world, the Word came into the world that he had made, but the world didn't recognize him. Even the Jewish people as a nation did not recognize him. So we're going to have a story of how the Word revealed himself, but he was not recognized. And yet there were some who did recognize him. There were some who believed. So the key word and the key experience in John's Gospel is those who believe and those who refuse to believe. And those who believe become the children of God. They are born of God. He continues in verse 14 of John chapter 1, "And the Word became flesh, and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him, and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him." My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we continue to look at the introductory summary, the statement of what John is going to reveal to us. He's declared God is the Word who created the universe. But now he declares this Word became flesh and dwelt among us. He became a person who lived in Galilee and Israel. And John is a witness. He was one of the people who knew this man we know of as Jesus. Over the time of him getting to know him and hearing what he said and seeing what he did, he summarizes it all by saying, "We beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth." From reading the Old Testament, people knew the character of God. If we were to summarize that character in two words, they are grace and truth. And if we were to summarize his appearance, it is glorious. In the Old Testament, when God came into the tabernacle, the glory shone forth, so that the priests had to go out. The same thing happened in the temple. The glory of God shone. It is light that is shining, which has no natural explanation. We have natural lights, electric lights, lamps, candles, but this shining of light has no natural explanation. It is the glory of God. And yet this glory was shown in a man who dwelt among us. He lived among us. He walked with us, he talked with us, he ate with us, he slept with us. But his character was extraordinary. He showed forth the character of God the Father. He's the only begotten of the Father. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? the egg needs the chicken to sit on it so that it will hatch. So the chicken must have come first. God created all of life as a functioning system with the ability to reproduce. But there is one man who was not conceived naturally. He is the begotten Son of the Father. Matthew and Luke explain Jesus was conceived by the Spirit of God. And this is declared here at the outset by the words of John the Baptist, who said, "This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me." Jesus was 6 months younger than John the Baptist. He came after him. But in his eternal being, he was from the beginning. He was before me. Now for John to know this before Jesus had lived his life and to declare it in John's hearing is absolutely amazing. John the Evangelist had these words of John the Baptist ringing in his ears as he met Jesus. And as he experienced Jesus, he came to realize that these words were true. But they were absolutely extraordinary words for John to say, because the popular expectation of the Messiah was simply a descendant of David, a natural man. And in one sense, Jesus was a natural man. I mean, he was fully human. He became flesh and dwelt amongst us. And yet, he was not natural, in that there was no evil in him. He was full of grace and truth. A verse I often quote from Exodus 34:6, when the Lord revealed himself to Moses. He said, the Lord, full of grace and mercy and long-suffering, full of goodness and truth, forgiveness, and bringing justice." You could summarize that in 2 words. One is grace, covering mercy, long-suffering, and forgiveness, and truth, incorporating the goodness and the justice of God. This is what John saw in this man, Jesus, that led him to conclude that he was indeed the Son of God. Of his fullness, he says, we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. What do we think of when we think of God? We think of one who is all-powerful, one who is all-knowing, full of wisdom. But what is his character? Does he hate us? Does he love us? Does he care for us? These characteristics are revealed to us in the way that Jesus dealt with people. The only begotten Son, the man who was born of God, who is in the bosom of the Father, that is, loved of the Father, who knows the Father's heart and has expressed it to us. He has revealed it to us. So it is by understanding the Lord Jesus, grasping the way that he dealt with things, that we begin to understand the character of our God. Yes, the universe shows his power. The universe shows his wisdom. But Jesus shows the love the Father has for us. The Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us. We beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness, this was he of whom I said, he who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. Of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him.